First, let's talk about how United States target Chinese. On the 8th of October, China's Ministry of State Security, MSS, revealed that the United States is systematically discriminating against Chinese scientists who are working for the US university through a project called China Initiative. The China Initiative was a program launched by the United States Department of Justice in November 2018 to prosecute perceived Chinese spies in American research and industry. Chinese-American scientists at 87 research institutions across the US have been affected. Out of those, 246 individuals were flagged for potential concerns, 103 researchers seeing their career ruined. According to the MSS, the U.S. Department of Justice have been recklessly arresting experts and scholars of Chinese origin using malicious tactics. This includes conducting indiscriminate investigations and harassment while continuously exaggerating the threat of Chinese espionage. One of such victims is Tan Hongjing, a Chinese researcher. Tan earned a PhD in materials science from the California Institute of Technology and joined the U.S. petroleum company Phillips 66 in 2017. In 2018, he decided to resign and return to China for family reasons. On the day of his resignation, he returned a USB drive, which the company had not previously flagged as a security concern. However, he was accused of stealing the latest battery technology for his Chinese employers, allegedly involving hundreds of confidential documents valued at over $1 billion. When Tan appealed, the court denied his bail request, cut off all his communications with the outside world, and repeatedly delayed legal proceedings. As a result, he was held in a detention facility for 11 months. Interestingly, U.S. prosecutors privately sent a message to Tan through his cellmate, claiming that he was not their target but urged him to admit that he was directed by the Chinese government. If he complied, in return for his confession, they promised to reduce his sentence. In the end, Tan spent nearly 3 years in jail, with legal fees reaching more than $400,000. Despite the Justice Department calling for the program a major prosecution victory against Chinese spies, it still came to an end in 2022. Assistant Attorney General for National Security Matthew Olsen expressed the Chinese initiative was completely driven by national security concerns, but the department must also maintain the trust of people whom we serve. According to a survey published in a renowned international science journal, over a third of Chinese origin scientists in the US do not feel welcomed in the country, and close to 3/4 do not feel safe as academic researchers. Michael Casey, the director of the National Counterintelligence and Security Center, stressed the importance of distinguishing between Chinese individuals and those of Chinese descent. He pointed out that many US companies worry about alienating the tech talent they depend on, which often include individuals of Chinese heritage. He suggested that the best approach for these companies is to share information with the public sector and criticize those who are unaware of how to contact their local FBI representative. On 10th of July, China-born scientist Wu Ying tragically took her own life in her Chicago home. According to the South China Morning Post, the U.S. National Institute of Health, NIH, which was the primary funding source for Wu's project, launched a program around the same time as the controversial China Initiative. Over the past 6 years, more than 250 scientists, primarily of Asian descent, have faced accusations of failing to disclose overlapping funding or research in China or violating other regulations. Despite these investigations resulting in only 2 indictments and 3 convictions, 112 scientists lost their job as a consequence. After Wu's death, her profile, her work, her publication, and grant records were all erased from the Northwestern Scholar website. Another Chinese-American scientist, Fu Xiangdong, found himself in a completely different situation. After investigation into his links with Chinese scientists and institutions, he resigned from the University of California, San Diego, where he had worked for 30 years. In 2020, Fu's team discovered a method that could potentially reverse Parkinson's disease. Despite his contribution, Fu was forced to step down from his position at UCSD after the investigation claimed he had violated relevant policies. In an interview with Deep Science, Fu said that FBI officials came by from time to time to make surprise inspections. As a result, 5 of his grants, totaling $1.5 million were taken away, and his lab was running with only 2 staff members. In 2023, Fu joined Westlake University in Zhejiang province in China, where he received generous resources, including a team of around 10 research assistants and a new lab in Hangzhou. The well-funded environment allowed him to continue his research into Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. According to data from Stanford University, departures of China-born scientists increased by 75%, with 2/3 of them moved to China. Surveyed scientists in Chinese descent in the US report anxieties and new difficulties in pursuing their research, with 61% considering leaving the US and 45% avoiding federal grant applications. China is more than happy to welcome these talents to continue their research here. As for the US, it's not looking too good. Looking back, before World War II, the world's scientific center had always been Europe rather than the United States. The reason why the United States was able to catch up was that a large number of scientists who were prosecuted by Nazi Germany joined the United States in order to defend freedom. Einstein, for example. The spirit of the United States even influenced some scientists who once worked for the Nazi Germany. Von Braun was one of the most important rocket engineers in Nazi Germany. The V-1 and V-2 missiles he developed once posed a huge threat to London. However, after World War II, the United States opened its arm to him and allowed him to participate in the research and development of space rockets. In 1960, his group was assimilated into NASA, where he served as the director of the newly formed Marshall Space Flight Center and as the chief architect of the Saturn V Super Heavy Lift launch vehicle that propelled the Apollo spacecraft to the moon. Imagine if the US Department of Justice has been as wary in the past as it is today. Would the United States have won the space race against the Soviet Union and weakened its economy? The commitment to freedom once gave the United States great power, but now that power seems to be fading.